the entire world is witnessing an unprecedented campaign of genocidal killing, misinformation, and absolutely disregard of the people of the global south, including China in this case, because the position of China is not being taken seriously. You see, it takes a lot of ideological propaganda to hide one of the most glaring facts of Western civilization that nobody wants to talk about. But this fact is that the slaughter of the masses of the global south has always been the prime industry of Western civilization since the 14th century, what is happening right now. Meaning that of 26,000 Palestinians, 63,000 are wounded, the massacre and the onslaught continues. And on top of this, we are seeing the complete impunity of Israel, complete bombing, mining, destroying entire residential areas, killing academics, journalists, people like me and you, basically, on the ground are being killed on the basis of they are part or they're supporting Hamas. There is nothing true about this. But why is this allowed? Because there is a centrality of Israel to the American project. The American project, what we also call US-led imperialism, is a system of control, of worldwide control that is basically relies on the material exploitation of countries of the South by the North.
The whole world has been witnessing this carpet bombing on Gaza, killing children, women, refugees by Israel since Hamas' attack on Israel on October 7th. Where will this crisis go? And why is Israel so important to the US that they can continue this genocide for so long? How did the axis of resistance emerge? And is there a way to bring peace back to the Middle East? Hello everybody, welcome to Talk It Out with me, Li Jingjing. In this episode, we will talk all about it. And joining me today is Matteo Capasso. He is a Marie Curie Global Fellowship between University of Venice in Italy and Columbia University in New York. He's also the author of Everyday Politics in the Libyan Arab Jamaria. He's also the editor of Middle East Critic. Matteo, thank you for joining us from Italy.
Thank you, Jingjing. Thank you for having me.
So first, let me start by asking you this very interesting thing going on today, because at the United Nations Human Rights Council, the UN members are giving a peer review to their members. And at this council, the United States and Israel condemns a genocide, but not a genocide in Gaza, a genocide in Xinjiang in China. This is so hilarious. I want to read you the comments, the quotes. For example, the US envoy said, "We condemn the ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and transnational repression to silence individuals abroad." And the Israel also condemned China for its treatment of ethnic Muslims in Xinjiang. But also worth noting is Palestinian envoy and the other majority Muslim nations do not condemn China. In fact, they praise China's effort in poverty alleviation. And several months ago, religious leaders, Islamic leaders visited Xinjiang and they praised China's efforts in they praised China's counterterrorism efforts. So, I mean, now we are seeing a contrast. US, Israel, and Western countries are condemning China's treatment towards Muslims, while Palestine and other Muslim majority countries do not condemn China, they praise China. So, I mean, how do you make of this?
Oof, Shinjin, this is, a reminder of a gradual collapse of the Western-led international order, where, reason and critical debate has been replaced completely by what I would call personally propaganda. And this is what is happening here. It's absolutely outrageous. And the fact that Israel and the United States, which combined since at least if we just look at the wars that were unleashed after 9/11, they have displaced 4 to 5 million Muslim people in the Middle East and West Asia. They are now coming and pointing their finger and accusing China, who has done its best to introduce a program of rehabilitation of these groups that, let's not forget, were funded by the same allies of the US and basically Saudi Arabia, we know, with the Wahhabi ideologies of Islam, trying to undermine the national sovereignty of China. They're pointing their finger and accusing China of committing a genocide. I mean, this is a complete bogus, we know. This is part of a larger strategy that the current, the Western international order is, pursuing to undermine the credibility of the huge and fantastic economic development and political capacity of China to, to provide a different model, an alternative to the destruction that the Western-led, value-based, whatever values have remained, order is pursuing. Now, this comes in a moment that is, I know it is ironic, but it's also very, very tragic. Why? Because as we're saying, this type of propaganda measures come vis-a-vis, at the same time, hand in hand, with actually a Western-led genocide taking place in Palestine. What's happening in Palestine, I mean, unfortunately, cannot be understood outside of history. There is a tendency now when we talk about what's happening in Palestine that everything has started on the 7th of October. And by the way, before I forget, as soon as the Chinese audience, popular audience, started condemning Israel on what's happening in Palestine, accusation by the US and Israel were moved against China about what this time? That China is spreading anti-Semitism. In other words, whatever China does, it's going to be accused of something. It's either Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. So in this picture, and maybe we will talk later, but China is maintaining the most rational approach to what is happening, which is holding their official position and holding everybody accountable to the UN resolution, international law, something that the West is not doing when it comes to Israel. Now, when it comes to Palestine, what is important is that the events do not start on October 7th, when this military operation by Palestinian resistance faction was launched, called the Al-Aqsa Flood, Tawafan Al-Aqsa, but must be understood in relation to the world as a unit, I would say. And Palestine is a very important part of this unit, because the battle that has been unleashed is a struggle that is leading to a further reconfiguration of this unit, of this world. It's not just a struggle between Palestine and Israel, a two-state or one state. This is a cumulatively political struggle that is going to decide the future of humanity, that is testing us, is testing humanity every day, because its future is at stake. And it is the future of this unit, by unit I mean the world, and how it is going to look like. This premise for me is so important because on the basis of this important struggle that the Palestinians are fighting, that is taking place in Palestine right now, the entire world is witnessing an unprecedented campaign of genocidal killing, misinformation, and absolutely disregard of the people of the global south, including China in this case, because the position of China is not being taken seriously. You see, it takes a lot of ideological propaganda to hide one of the most glaring facts of Western civilization that nobody wants to talk about. But this fact is that the slaughter of the masses of the global south has always been the prime industry of Western civilization since the 14th century. Now, Western value, the weight of ideas, this democracy, human rights, whatever, that define the so-called value-based international order, drip in blood. This is something that we should never forget. And I talk here as a European, because it's a self-reflective moment for us, that we need to have a journey, that we need to understand where we're coming from and how we reach this point. We cannot simply go around and say we are democratic, so we need to keep holding everybody accountable according to our own thresholds. Our thresholds, the one we built, are drip in blood. And it's time that we need to start understanding this. It's time that we come to terms with our own history, because the genocide of the Americas, of the Congo, the colonization of Africa and Asia, the 20th century endless war led by the US in the Arab region and beyond, and Libya, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, decades and decades of international sanctions and purposeful undermining of communist movements in Europe as well and elsewhere. These are facts, ultimately, that allowed what? The American project to dominate the world. And so what is happening in Palestine is very important because it's actually challenging this value system, this weight of ideas, and the material structures that support this project. It is very important in this historical moment because what we're seeing is that the American project of domination of the world is declining, is finding itself in a trap that, it's coming. Why are we why is the US power declining? And when I mean the US, I mean the triad in a way. I mean also its allies, Europe and Japan in this case, because this is how it consolidated after World War II. Now, in this historical moment, the US is declining due to several important factors, but one of them being obviously the long march of China out of centuries of humiliation, and two special military operations of Russia, respectively in Syria and Ukraine. Now, so the West has entered a geopolitical nightmare. And the response to this, what has it been? It has been basically this renewed wave of fascism. We're going back to the onslaught of the masses of the global South. So when October 7th comes and this operation takes place, all of a sudden nobody can understand why this is taking place. We are thrown back into this propaganda world of hyperbolic and completely stereotypical images being, we have to fight terrorism. The Palestinians are terrorists. Oh, look, there is Islamic fundamentalism coming out of Palestine. And so you've seen all and each and every European leader flying to Israel, supporting and green lighting what is happening right now. Meaning that of 26,000 Palestinians, 63,000 are wounded. The massacre and the onslaught continues. And on top of this, we are seeing the complete impunity of Israel. Complete bombing, mining, destroying entire residential areas, killing academics, journalists, people like me and you, basically, on the ground are being killed on the basis of they are part or they are supporting Hamas. There is nothing true about this. But why is this allowed? Because there is a centrality of Israel to the American project, which I know we will talk about. And so what is happening is that basically, as historical agents, the Palestinians have struck a blow to one of the major cogs of a declining American hegemony. So the Palestinians, in a way, are in a position which, as per history mandate, they've really they are challenging not just the Israeli ruling elite. They are facing an entire structure here. And the moment they're facing an entire structure, which means the entire West in their battle for liberation, it means also that everybody with a little bit of humanity left, who really thinks that this is, it is unjust, this is a just cause for humanity, then also is faced with a dilemma. Are we going to fight and support this struggle, or are we going to sit back and allow a genocide to take place?
It's very shocking that I will bring the Xinjiang case again, even though the West have been accusing that there's a genocide in Xinjiang, but in fact, anybody who's watching my channel and anybody who have been to Xinjiang know there's no genocide. And if there really is 1 million, 2 million people being killed, you would see at least one photo or one footage of the genocide, right? But even though they keep accusing China of committing genocide, but they cannot provide a single video or footage to prove this accusation. Well, in fact, we are seeing tens of thousands of images, of videos of people actually being killed, being bombed in Gaza. Babies, refugees, women were being bombed, hospitals were being bombed. And like the TikTok were flooded with all kinds of so real images on a daily basis. But we're facing such true proofs, they the West nations led by US and Israel refused to even say ceasefire. They refused to use the word genocide, which is this hypocrisy, this double standard is really shocking. And that got us to wonder, how come Israel can be so bold to continue to carry on this genocide when the whole world is witnessing this? What's your take?
I mean, there is, yes, that's a great question. You know why? Because there is a tendency to think of Palestine and what is happening there, and to move this accusation of anti-Semitism every single time you're trying to have a critical debate about what is happening. The idea is that, you know, the moment the moment the Americans and the Europeans and the Israelis have made this bold move to conflate Jewishness with Zionism, then every time you move a criticism to the Israeli state and what it's doing to the Palestinians, then you're hating Jews, which is very far from reality. Now, the importance of Israel, to understand the importance of Israel and Zionism especially, because that's where, you know, the key word lies in defining the ideology that lies at the foundation of Israel, and that is Zionism. How do we understand the centrality of Zionism to the Western-led order, to the American project of domination? Now, just a step back in this sense. The American project, what we also call US-led imperialism, is a system of control, of worldwide control, that is basically relies on the material exploitation of countries of the South by the North. Now, this domination is maintained through the use of military policies and economic policies that ultimately they try to prevent countries of the South from using their internal resources for the purpose of regional and popular development. So basically for providing to their own people. When these countries try to do so, then what happens is all this kind of propaganda accusation are moved. And this leads us back to Xinjiang and all the accusation of this complete bogus idea of genocide happening in China. So we have basically a military and economic war launched against all these countries that try to challenge the American project of domination. It's a project based on the dollar system. It's a very, you know, it's a complex process based on economic domination, but it's an economic domination that needs the military domination and military policies to control the different regions of the world in order to sustain itself. Now, for the project to consolidate, the Arab region has occupied a very unique role, especially after World War II. Why? Especially, this is due to the oil wealth. Now, when I talk about oil, I don't mean oil just as a thing. I mean the fact that political and control to the access and the sale of oil was central for the American project of domination to sustain itself, because it also fortified and consolidated the primacy of the US dollar internationally. So, to achieve this goal, the American project collaborated with two faithful allies, one of them being the Gulf monarchies, the other one being Israel. And this is where we need to understand the centrality. Why? Because Israel is effectively a US military outpost in the region. Between 1943 and 2023, a recent US congressional paper has shown that the US has provided Israel with 160 billion in aid, which with inflation adjust reaches 260 billion, without considering the loan guarantees extended to the Zionist entity, which are worth billions, including the military packages. Think that Obama, Barack Obama, which is always considered the most progressive president of the US because he's black, he deliberately bombed Syria and Libya, but also provided 38 billion in military assistance to Israel, which was the largest aid package in US history. Now, so there is this element about Israel, but this material part, but there is also an ideological element to this, which needs to be highlighted, because both Israel and the US share a mythology of exceptionalism. The political mythology incarnates this sort of missionary and colonial zeal that justifies the genocide of the Americas and displayed a religious belief towards the idea that the US has a unique role to play in world history, and the other countries would follow. This is why we are so comfortable, Westerners, to go around and talk about democracy, because we have this ideological background. Now, the same goes for Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians and the region as a whole. Attentive, followers will know how many times Netanyahu showed up with a new map, a redrawn map of the Middle East at the UN, for example. So there is this, they incarnate really colonialism in a way, both countries. But one would ask, why does the US invest in Israel so much? Why does the US provide Israeli with healthcare? And this money could be used to provide healthcare to the American citizens. And the same goes for all Western and European governments. Well, this aid to Israel, as we said, is an investment in militarism. Now, why? Because Israel basically promotes Western values in the region while securing US hegemonic domination, as always in the region. By acquiring nuclear weapons, Israel has undergone numerous military attacks and invasions of countries in the region, being Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. And in doing so, it has been a major force behind power accumulation, capital accumulation for Western imperialism, and its flip side, the other side of the coin, meaning what? Arab development. So every time that countries of the region tried to promote or to pursue a different path of development, one that centered the liberation of Palestine, obviously, as a key element of their project, and basically to de-link from American imperialism, from this project of domination, each of this country has been bombed or invaded, and Israel was always part of this effort. So this is why we are seeing Israel being allowed to do what it can right now in Palestine, because Israel is a military carrier. I don't know if you remember the words of Joe Biden, who said, if we didn't have Israel, we needed to create one.